Well, happy Friday, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on Unscripted. I was just dancing a little bit to our open music. It's pretty catchy. I really like it. I hope you folks do too. And what a beautiful Friday it is. Perfect night for some high school football. If you're watching on our NBC show, you just saw Harrison Beebe report live in East Jordan for that game that he's covering. But we have 9 other games that we're covering tonight as well. And if you plan on heading out to one of those games, you'll probably need to leave pretty soon. But Joe, how is the weather looking for the rest of the night?
I do. The music is catchy.
Right?
Maybe I can get
It's
a copy
so
and take it home so I can sleep tonight.
Yeah.
The weather is fantastic. I mean, for high school football, it doesn't get any better. It's not too cold. We all know what's coming down the road here.
Yep.
I think tonight is the halfway point, I believe, of the season.
Wow.
For high school football. But a beautiful evening, no issues there. The one issue, though, is we do need rain. Maya, it's been dry, and we're looking at Traverse City's on their way for the driest September since 2000 at least.
Oh my gosh.
To give you some perspective on that. We'll see if there's any rain. Of course, Helene has lifted north. We'll see if we get anything out of that. And there are signs, Maya, of a little bit of cooler weather coming in. All that a little later in Maine weather.
Thank you so much, Joe. And let's turn things over to a story we are working on today. That is a budget reversal in Lansing when it comes to funding for Michigan students' mental health and safety in school. This reversal isn't sitting well with some folks. Now, this is a follow-up story to something we shared with you earlier this week about the state cutting $300 million to fund things like school safety, resource officers, and mental health services. Now, about half of that has been restored, but that is just not enough for some lawmakers who are speaking out tonight. So here's Mark Shillette with that full story.
This was a political charade. I'm actually outraged. And I said that on the Senate floor, that they're playing games not just with our kids, they're playing games with my kids.
Senator John DeMoose isn't holding back on this week's About Face in Lansing.
This is just not the way to do things. And we can work together, but this was pure politics, and it made me mad, frankly.
His frustration, months in the making. Back in June, the state's budget cutting $300 million earmarked to address students' mental health services and security and safety, like school resource officers in our schools.
Why we would cut that and spend money on some of the other things we did was just beyond me, frankly.
That move got him fired up. But when those across the aisle proposed a $126 million supplemental spending bill this week, he voted against it.
Absolutely. I'm not going to vote for some half-baked measure they're cramming in before an election with a bunch of stuff in there that doesn't work for this. We need to restore funding.
Getting half of the funding back wasn't good enough for him. And while appreciated by local school leaders, it's not all they hoped for either.
It's not everything we'd hoped for, but it's a step in the right direction to restore some of that. And so we're thankful to be able to get that money and be able to put that towards those causes that we know are much needed in our public schools.
The new funding model means schools can move forward with plans, but maybe not all they had planned for.
Equates to about $100 a student for us, which is important because we use this money to hire school resource officers, to be able to have mental health workers, social workers that we've hired. So it helps that. Again, it's not everything we'd hoped for.
Appreciative, but not made whole.
The $300 million cut, to school health and school safety was a big one, and so we appreciate that the legislature re-looked at that.
But Senator DeMoose believes our schools, our administrators, and our students shouldn't have to settle for less than the full $300 million that was slashed.
Is $125 million enough to protect and preserve the mental health and safety of Michigan students?
Well, of course not. We just spent $24 billion on education, and you mean we can only carve out this tiny little bit?
He's calling out those across the aisle.
This was one gigantic political move before an election.
Making the claim that when it comes to our schools and our students' safety, everyone deserved better.
I get why a little bit of money is better than no money, but this was such a bad political deal. I hope we can get back there and actually fix the problem. Maybe after everybody's done playing politics and if, people lose their head around election time, and maybe when we get back to some normalcy, we can actually do a serious proposal to fix this.
And the supplemental spending of about $125 million will kick in January. In the meantime, Senator DeMoose is hoping that something can be done in the lame duck session to find a more permanent solution to a situation that he says should be a priority. So let's turn things over to our question of the day related to this story. Do you think the state should spend more on safety and mental health services for students? As of right now, 63% of voters say yes, 37% say no. You can scan that QR code on your screen right now to vote. You can also join in on the conversation by leaving a comment on our Facebook page. We have a post with our question of the day up on our Up North Live Facebook page right now. And you can also join the conversation live by commenting on this live stream if you're watching it on Facebook, YouTube, or X, and we can read some of those comments a little later. But let's turn things over to another story that we have for you today. And of course, with the election just a little more than a month away, our state has, let's bring down that blank CG. Yeah, we don't want that. Our state has seen a lot of attention from political candidates, especially presidential candidates. J.D. Vance was just in Grand Traverse County the other day for an event. Donald Trump was in downstate Michigan today for some different campaign events. But right now, Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz is in northern Michigan, not necessarily for a campaign event, but he's actually here with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to get ready for the vice presidential debate on Tuesday against J.D. Vance. So debate prep is usually a pretty private affair, but our Daniel Zivian was actually in Harbor Springs. You can see this video from him, and he found Walz at a local restaurant. So we only knew that he was going to be in the area because Emmett County Democrats posted on their Facebook page saying that he was here with Pete Buttigieg and he was picked up from the Pellston Airport. But let's turn things over to see what people who were there had to say about seeing Tim Walz.
We had like 15 minutes. The Secret Service called. They said we are securing the perimeter and we're going to be there soon, and get ready.
I vote in the Republican primary every year because Republicans are who are elected in my community, and I want him to say who is my representative. So I'm very excited that we actually had Democrats show up here and we could vote for and be excited about, because we don't see a lot of that here.
And the Emmett County Democrats say he will be here until Sunday. However, we know he's making a bit of a detour. He will be heading down to Ann Arbor tomorrow. Of course, Tim Walz is the governor of Minnesota. Minnesota Golden Gophers playing the Michigan Wolverines at the Big House. Tim Walz will be there. But all of this, all of this was sniffed out thanks to our reporter Daniel Zivian, who is joining us live now for more on his experience kind of tracking down Walz. Hey, Danny, how are you? Oh, hey, Danny, can you hear me? You there, Danny? All right, looks like we're having some similar issues that we had last night with the audio there. So hopefully we can check in with Danny a little later, because I do have to say he called me last night when he did happen to find Walz, and he was just really excited that he kind of sniffed that one out on his own, and just was cool that he got to run into the Secret Service and whatnot. So hopefully we'll be able to check in with Danny a little later. But let's take a quick break, and then coming up in just a few minutes, we'll bring back our Chief Meteorologist Joe Charlevoix into the conversation, and he'll have much more on the forecast for the rest of the night and for your weekend, and when we could potentially see some more rain, because as he mentioned, we definitely need it here in northern Michigan. So all of that in just a few minutes.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.
Welcome back, everyone. It is another pretty warm, almost hot day across northern Michigan. It's hard to believe that it is the end of September with the weather we are seeing today. So, Joe, when are things going to start to cool down and feel a little more like fall out there?
Tuesday.
Oh, okay, soon.
Yeah. Let you know right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been warm, and we are going to see that continuing for the weekend. I know you have plans. I think golf tomorrow.
Golfing tomorrow.
Yeah, and then well, obviously, I know you will watch the Lions game.
Which is on Monday night, though.
Monday night.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, they're playing. The Seahawks Monday night. I'm a Packers fan. We got the Vikings.
That'll be a good one. I'll definitely be watching that one.
Yeah, Vikings are 3-0.
Yeah. They're looking really good right now.
I know, I got a little surprised. Anyway, let's take a look outside of our studios near Traverse City, and then two random places, Nashville and Traverse City. The clouds you see there at Traverse City in the distance, that's the north edge of what was Hurricane Helene, some of the cirrus clouds off that. And then in Nashville, Tennessee, you can see all the rain ongoing there. That's where some of that rain is continuing from Helene. This is what that looked like. This made landfall last night. You can see the track as a Category 4 hurricane right there, right around the late news last night. Look how fast this moved, though. This was a quick-moving system that eventually moved up into Georgia. In fact, where it made landfall tonight, the sun is out down in Florida, but obviously a lot of devastation left behind with that system. Here's a look at radar right now, and this is where we have all that rain from basically areas around the East Coast, Washington, D.C., all the way out to St. Louis, down toward Memphis. We'll head even a little further north, and that rain getting to about the Michigan border there near Toledo, well south of Detroit. Even further north, you get into northern Michigan, and there's the edge of the clouds. Our northern counties have had sunshine all day long, but again, if you look in the southern sky right now, you can see the edge of the cloud cover from Helene. Here's a look at our surface map. So there's the remains of Helene there south of Cincinnati tonight. Not much going on this far north. It is warm. That will not change this weekend. Look at the temperatures right now. It's 85 tonight out at Minneapolis. These are the current readings with a lot of 70s here across northern Michigan. As far as rain, well, let's take you through the weekend. There's kind of what we look at. A few showers downstate tomorrow. But as you get north, especially north of Houghton Lake, we should see a good deal of sunshine once again. There is Sunday, a little cloud cover in the morning, but then more sunshine for the afternoon. So all in all, a nice weekend. And then even Monday, there will be a little increase in clouds, an uptick in cloud cover Monday, but I don't expect really much, if any, rain. Here's a look at the drought monitor. Now, this is a bit of an issue. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen an increase in a moderate drought across the UP, the tip of the mitt now, Emmett and Sheboygan counties, even there around Charlevoix, and then Traverse City, and also over toward Alpena, moderate drought for some of those areas. Not a lot of rain in our long-range forecast, unfortunately. This will go out through next Thursday. That's it. And you see that green over us, that's under a ½ inch. That would probably fall during the day on Tuesday when a cold front works through here. So here's a look at our forecast, a little more specific look. There's tomorrow, 70, sunny north, partly to mostly cloudy south with a northeast wind. And then there's Sunday, mid-70s to upper 70s, a few morning clouds, and another warm late September day as we look at the weekend. We talked about the drop-off Tuesday in temperature. There it is. With some showers. So a cold front comes in, that'll bring in a few showers. On Tuesday, we will drop back into the 60s, and it looks like that's where we stay next week, generally in the 60s through next Friday. So a week from now, Maya, it is definitely going to be a little bit cooler than what we have out there right now.
And a little more normal temperatures for this time of the year.
Yeah, yes, especially for late September, early October.
All right, thanks so much, Joe, for that. And as I mentioned a little earlier, Minnesota Governor and Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz. Our Daniel Zivian found Tim. Our microphones are going in and out. We're just having so much fun today on Unscripted, aren't we, Joe? So, Governor of Minnesota, Vice Presidential candidate for the Democratic ticket, Tim Walz, is in Harbor Springs getting ready for his debate against J.D. Vance on Tuesday. Our Daniel Zivian was able to track him down. Okay, Danny's nodding his head, so I think he can hear us. Hey, Danny, we got you?
Yes, I can, Maya. It's good to hear your voice. I'm back into civilization again. Happy to see you.
Thanks so much for joining us, Danny, and kind of walk us through, like, how were you able to to track down where Walls was? Because they didn't really announce where he was going to be specifically.
Absolutely. It was basically just with a little bit of luck. During the workday yesterday, we learned that he was going to be in Harbor Springs, and then we learned that he actually already was in Harbor Springs. They got the jump on us at Pellston Airport. And so I decided, I was driving up from Mansalona, and I said, well, let's take a look at Harbor Springs, see if we can find where he's having dinner. Maybe he's staying at the Colonial or at the Highlands. And so I walked around downtown for a bit, and then I was about to leave and start driving into the countryside. And as I was driving down Main Street, I saw 4 Secret Service agents, and you could just tell they were Secret Service agents standing in a circle. And I was like, well, here's the place. So I pull over, I talked to some people, and the Secret Service agents did their job very well. They did not confirm or deny what was going to happen, but it became very clear that Walls was going to appear at Turkey's. And it's not hard to figure that out if you know that there's only a few, like 4 or 5 businesses that are open in Harbor Springs after the summer season at that time of night. So yeah, because it's just that small a town when you get down to it. And so we waited around, and sure enough, more Secret Service agents started piling in. Suddenly, right in front of Turkey's are all these huge black SUVs. There's armored guys in one of them. And he was in the restaurant. They got him through the back door, of course. He didn't just walk out onto the sidewalk. He was already in the restaurant when we all noticed. And I asked if I could go in and join all the people who were being screened to go in at the same time. Now, what they told me, now this may or may not be true, but what they told me was they were so unprepared for any press being there. They were so surprised that I was there with a camera that they did not have the proper equipment to scan the camera for any dangerous devices you might hide inside the battery or other parts of the camera. But that is how shocked they were. I was questioned very directly. Who tipped you off? How did you know this was happening? And the honest answer is, I didn't. It was just the right place, right time.
Yeah. And so you didn't get to actually talk with Governor Walls.
I didn't even make it into the restaurant. What happened was, and when they finally told me that I really couldn't go in, they told me to also go across the street. I was able to get a few filmed shots of him through the window while I was standing with the crowd at a close up. But then they asked me to go across the street. I did still have a vantage point so I could see him leave the restaurant, get into the car, see the motorcade, go off into the night. But yeah, that was I did not approach talking to the candidate.
And we played your soundbite earlier from someone who worked at the restaurant, and she said that they didn't really get much of a heads up. They just got a phone call from the Secret Service saying that he was coming, and then boom, they were there.
Yeah, 15 minutes notice, I think. It's very interesting. I've eaten at Turkey's before. The owning family, the Grahams in general, the father just passed it on to his daughter. She's been running the restaurant for herself now for, I think, a few months. And what a way to kick off your tenure as a small business owner in Harbor Springs, Secret Service calling up. And they seemed pretty darn flummoxed. And I spoke with, obviously I interviewed those two. I spoke with other people around there. There was really just no inkling. They make a plan. They say, we're going to have dinner here. Should we let them know now? No, too much time. Not secure enough. We got to let them know very soon, very shortly. And they got, even though that was very short notice, the visit itself, I should mention, wasn't really short. He was there, I got to say, he must have been there for at least half an hour, maybe even an hour, if he was actually having dinner there earlier, which based on some pictures that Turkey's eventually shared out on their own platforms, that seems to have been the case, that he actually did have dinner there. Yeah, it wasn't a short visit. He got his money's worth there.
That's awesome. Well, Dan, thanks so much for joining us on Unscripted and kind of walking us through how you were able to track down Governor Tim Walz and sharing that with us. We appreciate that so much. And we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will check in with our sports director, Harrison Beebe, who has a preview of all the football games happening on Week 5 for high school football coming up in just a few minutes. Well, an exciting time for sports fans across the state of Michigan. The Tigers could very well clinch their first playoff berth in 10 years tonight. They're playing the White Sox right now. Checking the score at the bottom of the first, scoreless game right now. But we will definitely keep you updated on that. Meanwhile, we have a full slate of football games tomorrow for college football. Of course, as I mentioned, Michigan and Minnesota at the Big House. I believe that is a noon kickoff. Michigan State playing Ohio State tomorrow night at 7:30. Third-ranked Ohio State, may I add. And then, of course, we have the Lions and the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. So for Lions fans, I know we're used to watching on Sunday. It's going to be kind of weird having to watch other football games, but there's a lot of other really great matchups. And we can't forget about high school sports. There's a whole slate of high school football happening tonight. I know I will be here in Traverse City covering the Traverse City St. Francis Kingsley game. Our sports director, Harrison Beebe, is in East Jordan, and we are trying to get him into the broadcast, but I'm thinking Harrison might be kind of busy shooting some highlights already. Is that right, guys? Might not get to talk to Harrison right now. All right, so we don't get Harrison Beebe right now, but that's okay because you'll see plenty of Harrison tonight on Up North Live News at 11. We have hometown highlights. We will be at 10 different games across northern Michigan. We will bring you the highlights, the scores, the biggest plays, all of that fun stuff tonight on Up North Live News at 11. So be sure to tune in then. Sorry we can't bring you Harrison right now, but you know, he is a busy guy, so only so much one sports director can do. We're going to take another quick break, but we will be right back in just a few minutes.
Salon services are furnished by Epiphany Advanced Academy in East Acme.
Let's take another look at our question of the day. Do you think the state should spend more on safety and mental health services for students? Looks like 64% say yes, whereas 36% say no. Now, the reason why this was our question of the day is because if you recall, earlier this week, we shared a story with you about the state cutting $300 million to fund things like school safety, resource officers, and mental health services. Well, now about half of that funding has been restored, but some lawmakers are still pretty upset about it because they think that more than just half should be restored. And in case you missed that full story by Mark Gillette earlier in our newscast, you can go to our website, UpNorthLive.com, and watch his entire story. That'll do it for Up North Live Unscripted tonight on this Friday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take advantage of the nice weather, and we'll see you back here tonight on Up North Live News at 11. Can